Two questions, just answering them with WAPTEK. Hi WAPTEK, could you explain to a confused Brit? Most of us over the pond watched this and wondered what the point of it was. Once inside the capital, people generally milled around and then left. We're over here missing something? No, that's really what happened. They expected, and you can hear it in their voices, and also see it online if you can see some of the archives, which there are. They assumed they were going to break into that location fast enough to catch everybody in the room with their pants down, because they have some imagined world where they're all in there, I guess, sacrificing babies and eating them or chewing on them. But get in there and punish the evildoers, murder people. And they thought they were going to be able to get in there and yelling at the top of their lungs, "We're coming for you," running through the halls, "Come out so we can kill you." That's like telling me to go down in the basement because there's a monster down there. And they thought that they were going to righteously punish people for acknowledging that they didn't win an election. And then when they didn't find anybody, or if they didn't find very many people, they only found basically security and safety people trying to keep them from breaking the place. They went around and broke things and literally smeared fecal material and piss all over the place, broke things, stole things, and generally did exactly what you saw on the news. You aren't missing anything. That's literally what happened. The presumption some idiots make that if they yell that they're going to hurt me and that I'm a coward for not walking out so they can murder me. That's actually happened only in a couple of occurrences, and all I thought was, is it really supposed to work that yelling coward at me while I'm fleeing for my life is going to make me turn around and kill myself? I'm not sure what universe that comes up in, but apparently people think that way. But no, that really is what you saw, and that really is what happened. They have a fantasy universe idea of how things are supposed to work, and it never works that way, and then they just do it again. It's a type of mindset. It occurs with lots of people. And no, I'm going to state something very factual. People who do this eventually really do realize the world has been pulled over their eyes, and they stop being asleep. They wake up, they stop being sheeple. These are sheep. And they realize that literally anybody leading them by the nose, doesn't matter if they like being led by the nose, they're still being led to a slaughter. Donald Trump made them into his foot soldiers, said he was going to go with them, and then turned right around and got away from them while they did his dirty work. That's my opinion of it. Now we're going to get on to a question that's not political at all. It's about guns in the United States. And I mean that really. This isn't politics. In the United States, we have guns that are referred to as being unregulated. Now, they're listed as category or title such and such. I understand that. But it just means there's no regulation on them on a federal level. And in many states, counties, cities, neighborhoods, there are regulations on them. But generally, by and large in the United States, some specific types of weapons are simply not regulated. The least regulated of the bunch is a conventional .22 caliber rifle or pistol, or a 12-gauge shotgun. I know that sounds like a really extreme thing, going from .22 caliber to effectively 70 to 80 caliber. But these are the least regulated weapons in the United States because .22s are seen as targeting, for shooting targets. And 12 gauges are seen as literally for the purpose of hunting and legitimately self-defense. They have a limited capacity, but they're just obscenely destructive weapons that have been given a sporting usage pass and a self-defense pass because they're extremely good at deterring an attack and ending an attack. In the case of .22, if you can fire a shot correctly, it's a one-shot kill as well. For almost any animal you want to hit, you can go hunting with it. And it can be used safely, depending on the ammunition you pick, like using deliberately underpowered .22 shorts to take out vermin. You can even load special cartridges that are shotgun type. And the next one down on the list is a .410 shotgun. And that's about it. There's a bunch of them, but those are the least likely to get you into trouble. They're conventional, long guns. And in the case of pistols, something with a limited capacity under 10 shots that's a pistol shape that looks like a pistol is less regulated, even though it's more likely to be used in a criminal action. And then up from that are semi-automatic or auto-reloading pistols, and also oddball guns such as what looks like a shot-off shotgun, but it's really called a firearm. And then finally, for some stupid reason, rifles that look scary and military looking. Mostly because I think some people are just cosplaying being military people and they're envious. But they're more regulated because they're associated with the mindset of a person who might want to feel like they're an ex-military person. The kind of contrarian that talks up how they've always been in the war and they've been into 100 wars and they were in Vietnam when they're only 20 right now. That kind of mindset is the kind of person you don't want to have a gun. But I digest. But I was asked a question. Can a home-built gun be made into a legal gun with a serial number and a federal firearm registration for it? Now, this implies a bunch of things, but let's just get this answer done. If you want to make a gun or you own a gun that has been made by you, not manufactured, which is a word that is used primarily to mean for sale or for trade. If you make a gun for your own usage because you want to, or because you don't have enough money to afford one, can that be made legally? I'm not saying make it legal. Let's say you started off with it being, whether you know it or not, legal. What are the rules on that? Make it look like every other gun you can legally buy. Period, full stop. It needs to look like any other gun. It needs to be made to look like any gun you don't see anybody trying to regulate. Again, a standard shotgun, a standard rifle, or a pistol. Nothing unusual looking. The only exception here is a weird category called firearms. These are basically pistol grip shotguns specifically that are 26 inches long or longer overall length. They're pistol grips so that the majority of the gun's weight and its volume is consumed by making a bullet or shot go downrange with a long enough barrel to do the job. The idea with these guns, if you're not aware of it, isn't to be macho or anything. It's that it removes as much of the weight and the material as possible to make a gun that accurately puts something downrange. There are rifles built this way too. You can look them up. But here we go. A license is only required if you're manufacturing firearms for sale or distribution, if you're acting as a go-between for shipping and receiving, or if you're selling them. Also, another one is made if you're going to manufacture and sell ammunition. A license is not required to make a firearm solely for personal use and you're not trying to resell it. You can later, but you'll have to follow some restrictions and rules here. As long as it's, again, literally bog standard like any other gun you could buy. Look at what is available legally to buy in the area. Make your own if you want. Make one that's the same shape. Make it the same appearance and same gauge. It has to be the same kind of calibers that are available. Stick to being under 50 caliber, unless it's a shotgun. Now, law prohibits you or anybody who is manufacturing a gun for sale from using 10 or more imported parts in the firearm. And if you're making one, you're not required to avoid 10 parts that are imported from other countries, but you should. Because in this, we're going to talk about a simple idea. When in doubt, do it exactly the way you'd have to do it if you were the most restricted person on the planet. Again, if you want to own a gun, make one especially. Make sure it's a gun that no one wants to regulate. Make it boring. An Elmer Fudd gun. If you are making a firearm, act like you're a manufacturer as far as following every stinking rule you can find, but only make it for your own personal use. And do a good job of it if possible. Making a restricted firearm, anything that's outside of the range of a normal gun, anything that looks unusual, requires that you pay the ATF $200 in the form of a check or money order. Usually it's a money order. And you wait for them to approve you making an unusual weapon. Now, this is the funny thing about this. You have to do this in advance before you even start building it. You turn in the information and design on what you want to build. In my case, it would be a 12-gauge double-barrel flare gun that's got a barrel this long, or this long. Now, the reason I build it isn't to build a flare gun. Obviously it is, but I would say it isn't. It's because I want to break off the barrels and put on long barrels and a buttstock, because I'm not allowed to do those things necessarily unless I get permission to make a regulated, restricted weapon that's $200 just for that chunk of metal that's the handle and the parts you put the barrels on. The reason for that is, once I've done that, I've gotten permission from the U.S. government to own and build it. They can't rescind it later unless they tell me ahead of time, and they can't presume I'm a criminal because I got permission from them. On the meantime, if I made a gun and made it have a plastic barrel, which is legal to make a flare gun, so I could change it out and do all these things to it, and I could put a buttstock on it or not, and have a long or a short barrel or not. They could still complain about me having a short barrel in the building, unless I had a permit and just paid them the $200 and got it over with. And it's $5 as well for some other activities. Sometimes it's only $5 for a permit. It's $200. They're not going to give you the $5 special. So what do you have to have as far as serializing and registering it? Again, registering, you have to do it before you build it. Now, if you own a gun that's already normal and you want to cut the barrel down, like let's say you have a shotgun, it's an old one, and the barrel's broken. I want to cut the barrel down because I don't want to buy another barrel. If you're willing to throw $200 away on it, or say you will, the ATF can give you permission to do that cut down. And you're registering your weapon. You're a registered gun owner with the federal government. They can choose to say, we don't have to have you have the thing. Here's a $5 tax stamp. That doesn't happen often, but they might do it. You could explain your situation. It's an old gun. The barrel's just slightly under 26 inches. I need to cut it down and then re-weld a piece on. I want to permanently install a extended choke tube on it. But for a few minutes, it's cut down and it's legal. You can take the barrel off and have a smith do it. But if you want to do it, you have to tell them this. And they'll just give you a $5 tax stamp and say, yeah, just make sure it's the right length and blind pin it and weld it. Then you send them information back or go to the police station and say, here's the proof that I did the barrel right. Now, normally you just go to a gunsmith and they just fix the barrel, just give you a new one. Just buy one. But if it's a really old gun, an unusual gauge, yeah, temporarily, is when they're fixing the barrel, it's a short barrel gun, especially if they can't remove it from the receiver. If they can, they don't have to do that. But this is actually one of the few exceptions that does that. And a lot of times they won't even charge you money. They like the fact that you asked them permission first. Because this originally started off being a rule to repair a gun. This was actually how it was done at one point. But anyway, how do you mark these things? Well, again, you don't have to mark them. If you make a gun, you don't have to. But let's say you're in California and they want you to mark the weapon. One must conspicuously engrave, cast, stamp, impress, or etch the frame, receiver, barrel, or slide. Don't do the barrel. To a minimum depth of 3/1000ths of an inch, with a print size no smaller than 1/16th of an inch tall, the following information. And again, please don't put this on the barrel. You can. I'd recommend it if the barrel has an integral chamber, you put the information there. But the receiver is where you put the following information, more importantly. A human or company name for a manufacturer or maker. Specify maker. I would put in WAPTEK or my legal name. You can put in your legal name, it's fine. You put this on the receiver, the main part, because the barrel can be changed out, as I've described. The model designation, for instance, I would call it a flarenger because it would be a giant Derringer 12 gauge, even though I'd probably never put a short barrel on it. Then you put the caliber gauge. Now, optionally, you can put it on the body of the gun. In my case, I'd have to put it on the barrels because I can change it out and put a different barrel on. I want that kind of design. So you put 12 gauge and whatever the chamber depth is, in this case 3.5 inch. Or you could put in 444 Marlin for a combo gun. And you can put on dozens of different ones on the barrel chamber combination. On the body of the gun, it needs to have something like, in my case, PDX Oregon USA. PDX space OR space USA for the country, city, state of origin. It doesn't have to have that information in it, but if you put it on there, they like it better. And then finally, the serial number. Now this is when I'm going to give you only one bit of advice. ISO time and date stamp. It starts with the century is 2 digits, 2 digits for the year, 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, 2 digits for the hour, 2 digits for the minute. In this case, it'd be 2021-01-12-1952. That's unique enough that it can't be confused, and somebody would write that down. It's short enough they could write it down easily, and it's obvious that that's a year, a century, year, month, day, hour, minute, and second. And that's all. That's all the advice I have for you. And all of this can be omitted if you make it for your own usage and ownership. But putting this kind of information on it, especially if it doesn't have just your name on it, might make it to where a person would look at it, blink, and set it back down and not pay any attention to it, because that's pretty generic sounding. Again, avoid strange looks at you. Be boring. I can be boring. I push it. I have to work at it. And when it comes to making these things, you keep it as boring and simple as possible. Generic, boring, these aren't the weapons you're looking for. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that.